So today we are going to start with the environments in the Salesforce. So what is environment? Environment is nothing but instance of force.com. When you are purchasing the instance of force.com, which we call it as environment. I repeat the point. Environment is nothing but instance of the force.com. Instance of the force.com. Now the environments in the Salesforce are classified into three types: production, developer environment, testers environment. The environments in the Salesforce are classified into three types: production, developer environment, and testers environment. When I say production, so what is this production? Production is nothing but production. Production is nothing but instance of force.com environment. Production is instance of force.com environment where data needed to store, where the data needed to run your business logic, is stored. Let us say I was trying to deposit 10,000 rupees in my account. When I want to deposit 10,000 rupees in my account, I will provide my account number and I will say 10,000. So what the system will do, it will verify whether the account number is already available in the database. If it is available, what is the current balance? Find out the balance. Then it is going to add 10,000 to the balance and put back to the database. So if you want to run this operation, we need the data. The data required to run your business logic. The data required to run your business logic. Where the data was stored, that environment we call it as production. Production is a instance of force.com environment where data needed to run your business logic is stored, or we can say environment where the live data is stored. Suppose if I am running a banking application, if you open a new account, I am going to store your details, your name, last name, your address, ID proofs, all this data I am going to store at a location. So whenever you are trying to perform any transactions like a deposit or a withdraw, I'll go back to the location, check your data and update your data. So the location where live data is stored or the data required to run your business logic is stored, that environment we are going to call as production. Developers environment. It is also instance of force.com. It is also an instance of force.com where we can, using which we can enhance or build new functionalities without disturbing the production environment. It is an environment, it's a force.com instance where we can perform development activities to enhance or build new functionalities without disturbing your production. Then we have testers environment. It is also an instance of force.com environment where we can perform testing activities on your application. So we have production where live data is stored, or the environment where data required to run your business logic is stored. Developer environment. It is also an instance of force.com where we can perform enhancements or building new functionalities without disturbing the production environment. Testers environment. It is the force.com instance where we can carry out our testing activities on the application. So these are the environments. So to perform this development and testing, Salesforce has provided you an environment called sandboxes. So Salesforce has provided a sandbox. To understand what is this sandbox, let us look at this diagram. Let us assume I have production. This is my production. Let us assume this is my production. On my production, I have some table. Let us say I have a table called employee. Employee table, where I have name of the employee, salary of the employee. I got some data. Let us say Sham 10,000, Ram 4,000. This is the data of an employee. We have a table called employee where we have a name and salary. Along with this, I have some programs. To support my business operations. Let us say P1, P2, P3. I have written some programs to support my operations. I have some logics to meet my business requirement. I have some logics. Logic 1, logic 2, logic 3. I have some rules to run my business operations. So, in my production, I have a table with the data. I have some programs. I have some logics. I have some rules. So, this is my production. Now, what I was doing, I was taking copy of production. Whatever that is there in the production, I was taking a copy of production. When I was taking the copy of production, what I have here, I have employee table. I have employee table. Let us say I have name and salary. Then what are the programs that we have in the production? The same programs were taken. All the programs, all the programs which are there in the production, I have taken. All the logics that are there in the production, I have taken all those logics. All the rules what I have in the production, I was taking here. So what we have, whatever that we have in the production, the complete structure of the production is taken. What is the difference that you are finding between this production environment and this environment? I took a exact copy of production. I took a exact copy of production's metadata. What I have taken here? Production's metadata. When you say production's metadata, tables, structure of your tables, programs, logics, automations, rules, and your settings. Everything except data. I have taken the copy of production's metadata. When you say metadata, it is complete structure of your application along with the settings, configurations, programs, logics, rules, and structure. Whatever the structure we have in the production, exact copy I have taken, only I am not getting the data. When I say data, I am referring to records in the table. My data. Except data, everything I have taken. So this is called metadata. This is called metadata. What we are finding here is called metadata. So sandbox is nothing but copy of production's metadata. Whatever the application that is there, the complete application is available with you with all the code, structure and everything. But only the difference is in the production, whatever the customer data is there that is available in the production, on the sandbox, you don't get that production data. So I being a IBM company developed an application, gave that application to ICICI Bank, and ICICI Bank is using that application. Now, whatever the application I developed for the ICICI Bank, same application copy is available with me. But what I don't have is the data what customers are entering, the data is not there with me. The data is only with ICICI. As for the application is concerned, the complete structure of application is available even with IBM. Whatever the application I developed for the ICICI Bank, the same application with the complete structure and code is available with me. But what I don't have is whatever the live data that customer is providing, that data is only available on production. It is not available on sandbox. So sandbox is a copy of production's metadata. Now let me take one more structure. I was taking one more copy of production. Here I was taking one more copy of production. In this copy, again, when I said I was taking a copy of production, I have employee, I have name, salary, I have name and salary, and it is also taking sample data. Sham 10,000. Then it has programs, logics, rules. So what we have here is I have programs, logics, and the rules. So what is this? It is also a sandbox. But in the sandbox, what we are finding? It is a copy of production's metadata and data. Now, so what we are finding here? It is a copy of production's metadata and data. So when I say sandbox, sandbox may be copy of production's metadata only, or sandbox is a copy of production's metadata and data. Any queries on this? Any queries for anyone? Any queries for anyone? Everyone is clear with this concept? Right. Now, go with this point. So I repeat the points here. Sandbox, it is a independent copy of productions metadata or metadata and data. Now, by taking the copy of this production, what I am going to do on this? So, if I want to perform development, if I want to develop any new modules, if I want to carry out any development activities, or if I want to carry out any testing activities, or if I want to train any new employee, a new employee joined my organization, I want to train him how to use this application. So I will give the training on Sandbox. If I want to carry out any development activities, testing activities, or training activities, that will be done on Sandbox, as the production is the live environment without disturbing the production environment. Without disturbing the live environment, if I want to carry out any development activities, testing activities, or training activities, we will be using sandboxes. So sandbox is used for development activities, training activities, or testing. So the development, training, and testing is done on sandbox. Live environment is production, and your testing, development, and training environment is sandbox. Right. Now when you're looking at this, look at the point. Now developer was working on this environment. A new developer is working on this environment. What he has done, he developed new programs. Let us say he developed program 4. He written some new programs. And he has written some logics, let us say L4, L5. Some rules, let us say R4, R5. Is done. So once he developed the functionalities, if everything is working out well, then he is going to push these changes to the production. He is going to push the changes to the production. Now what he is doing? Moving the metadata changes from one environment to another environment is called deployment. If you push the changes from, if you push metadata changes from one environment to another environment, we call it as deployment. I may push the changes from this sandbox to production, or I may push it from this sandbox to this sandbox. If you push the changes from one environment to another environment, we call it as deployment. Whenever we push the changes from one environment to another environment, we call it as deployment. Fine. Now what happened? This guy, let us say Wilson was a tester. Now he developed some changes. He developed some functionalities. Pushed these changes here. When he pushed, we have P4, P5, L4, L5, R5. Right. Now Wilson, when he took the copy, he has P1, P2, P3, L1, L2, L3, R1, R2, R3. But today he want to test some functionality. Now what happened? Wilson want a fresh copy of production. He took the copy of production 1 month back. Now he want to take the fresh copy of the production. When the Wilson want to take a fresh copy of the production, then what he uses? He uses refresh. You will be using refresh. So what is this refresh? When I say refresh, remove the existing copy. Whatever the existing copy has got, whatever the existing copy has got, whatever the existing copy has got, you want to remove everything. Remove entire existing copy. Remove entire existing copy. Remove entire existing copy. Whatever the copy we have, remove everything and take a fresh copy of the production. If you are taking a fresh copy of the production, we call as refresh. Refresh means whatever the copy we have, remove that copy, delete entire thing, take a fresh copy from the production, which is called a refresh. So we have metadata, data, production, sandbox, deployment, refresh. These are the terms what we are going to use in terms of environment. When I say metadata, it is only configuration, programs, settings, rules, and business logics. When I say data, it is the records what we are storing. So production will be having metadata and live data. When you say sandbox, sandbox will have productions metadata only or productions metadata and sample data. It is, I'm repeating the word, metadata and sample data. Right. If you are moving the changes from one sandbox to one environment to another environment, we are calling as deployment. If you are pushing the changes from one environment to another environment, we call it as deployment. If you take a fresh copy of production, into sandbox, then we call it as refresh. So let me show you. I'll show you production and sandbox here for an idea. I'm logging into my production. So I'm logging into my production. So I logged into my production. Here, from production, I am creating a sandbox. So when I say sandbox, I told it's a copy of production's metadata. So I am trying to create a sandbox. From production, I am trying to create a new sandbox. So what happened? I created a sandbox. When I created a sandbox, right now whatever we have in the production, exact copy of production is created. Right now whatever we have in the production, exact production's metadata is available on sandbox. So I created the instance of production. Whatever I have in the production, exact copy I created. This I will be giving to my developer or a tester to perform their activities. Now let us see. This sandbox 9 guy, he took a sandbox, let us say on 1st of October, he has taken the sandbox. Now he told boss, I want a fresh copy of production. When I took the sandbox, after I took the sandbox, there are a lot of changes happened in the production. Now he said he need a fresh copy. Then what I'm doing? I'm just refreshing. When you refresh, whatever the old copy is there in the sandbox 8, that will be lost and a new copy will be created. Whatever the old copy is there in the sandbox, that is lost and new copy will be created. So this is how you work with the sandbox. Now when I say sandbox, again I repeat the terms. Sandbox is a exact copy of production's metadata or metadata and sample data. Any further queries for anyone? Any queries for anyone? Am I clear with this? Anyone has any queries as of now?
Satish, Srikanth here, one question here. So now we just refreshed Sandbox 8, right?
Yes.
So what is the base on which we refreshed? So on Sandbox 9 or 10?
Pardon me?
I don't know how to put this question across. Let's assume that you've made some changes to Sandbox 9, right? And then you've refreshed Sandbox 8.
See, now all these are independent sandboxes. So the changes what I made on this sandbox will not be reflected to any other sandbox. All of them are independent copies. It's just like your Gmail account. Now what happened? You create one Gmail and I will create one Gmail. All the facilities that are there in the Gmail will come to you and me also. Now the changes what you made on your email settings will not affect my settings. Right? All of them are independent copy. Now what happened? When I made any changes on Sandbox 9, then I will push these changes to production. Okay. Whatever the changes I made on the sandbox, first I will push the changes into production. Then I will refresh myself. Are you clear about this point? Yeah. All these are independent environments. None of them are associated. The changes made on any environment will not be reflected on any other environment. All of them are independent environments. All of them are independent environments. So what I explained you is, I just created a new sandbox and I explained you how to refresh the sandbox. That's all. I didn't move any changes. Okay?
Okay. And is there a concept of versioning in this?
Come again?
Is there a concept of versioning?
That will come at the time of deployment. Yes, it is there. We'll discuss those things at the time of deployment. Okay?
Okay, sure.
Any other queries for anyone? Right.
Satish, we are doing development in metadata plus data kind of sandbox or
yeah, I'll explain.
Metadata sandbox.
The classification of sandboxes are there. So where I'm going to explain which sandbox is used for what. You can see here the different category of sandboxes. So each sandbox is meant for one purpose. I'll explain what is the purpose of that. Okay. Then we'll be understanding which sandbox is used for what purpose. Right. Any other queries? Right. To give you yeah, 1 minute. I'll just come back. Now to put the point clearly, the sandboxes which are having only metadata, generally they are suitable for development. The sandboxes which are having metadata plus data, they are generally for testing purpose. Because if any tester want to make any testing activities, he need a live data which he will be taking from a production. So generally sandboxes which have metadata with sample data, they are used for testing activities. Sandboxes which are used for development, they generally have only metadata. But both these are used for development. But optimally, these sandboxes are used for development. Optimally, these sandboxes are used for testing. But in general, on any sandbox, you can make a development. Okay? All right. Fine. Someone is asking a query. Go ahead.
Satish, Nagesh.
Yes, Nagesh.
Satish, once you create a sandbox,
yes.
Now it is in queue or some training status, right?
It takes some time to create the instance.
Okay. So
once
you don't need to do anything. So once you
get a notification, something like this. Once it is activated, you will get the corresponding notifications.
okay.
says the sandbox is ready. You can activate. Right. Sandbox 6 is ready for use. Once the queue is completed, it gives you a message. Sandbox is ready. Log into the sandbox using this. Okay.
Okay.
Any other queries from anyone?
Satish, who will create these sandboxes?
Administrator. So
Okay.
I'll create the
You meant to say
sandbox.
administrator?
Yeah.
Yeah, developers do not have access to create these sandboxes.
No. See, sandbox. You are creating the sandbox from the production. So generally, developers will not be having an access to the production. Maybe your administrator who has an access. Okay, the person who has an access to the production, only he will be able to create a sandbox. Now, for every developer, we don't give access on the live production, right? It's a live production.
But while doing development means at least from our developer side for testing purpose, metadata sandbox will not be useful, right? Without data.
Now, when you are going for a testing is not a single term. Testing has different levels of testing. Now, as a developer, if you are making a testing, which is a unit testing, now for your unit testing, you can create a couple of sample records and do it. Now, if you are going for a load testing or performance testing, I need a huge data, which I cannot create, which I need to adopt. If you are going for a quality analysis, quality assurance testing or integration testing, then I need to create a sample data from my end. Now, if you are going for a regression or QDP or some other testing, then we need a sample data from the production. So it depends upon the type of testing mode that you are using. Then we decide which sandbox should be used. You get a clear picture once I discuss about the types of sandboxes. Right. So the next level, once I get into the next level, you clearly understand which sandbox is used for which purpose. Okay.
So sample data needs to be created by developer or some BA, some functional people.
Again, the same thing I'm telling. Now, if you are a developer, you are building a functionality. When you are building a functionality, who will take the sample data? Now, I'm not testing the application. I'm testing the functionality what I created. As a developer, I wrote some code. I'm verifying whether this code is working fine or not. Now, if you're using a term called testing, you're testing your application, then we require a sample data. Now, I'm making a unit testing. Who will make a unit testing? Is a developer who create a unit testing, right? Now, suppose, okay, fine, in that context, let us say I made a huge functionality. Now I want to test it. Then what we do? We take some sample data from the production, or we obviously have to create a record. If you are a developer, either you request the developer to give some sample data from their end, or you have to take it. But when you create a sandbox, they don't give you sample data. Are you getting my point? On the developer sandbox, they don't give you. Now that's what I told. Let me finish off the classification of sandboxes. Then you understand which will be getting. Right. You are at the climax scene of the story. We are at the titles only. Right. Come back. Right. So any other queries from anyone? Meanwhile? Right. Fine. So let me come back to the point. Now I told sandboxes are generally used for development, testing and training. Now the question is, which sandboxes will be used for which purpose? Which sandboxes are used for which purpose? We have different types of sandboxes. Sandboxes are classified into developer sandbox, developer pro sandbox, partial copy sandbox, and full sandbox. These are the 4 types of sandboxes which we have. Now, if you are a developer, generally let us say I have 3 developers. If you are a developer, you install everything on your system, then you write your code. Whatever the code that you are writing, it is saved on your system in general. Now, as we are working on a cloud, nothing should be saved on my system. I should not install anything. Nothing should be installed on my system and nothing should be saved on my system. Now, let us assume I have 3 developers. I have 3 developers who are working on an application. Now I have 3 developers. Let us say Wilson, Sham, and Faraz. These are 3 people who are working on my product. Now I have 3 users, Wilson, Sham, and Faraz. These 3 guys are working on my application. Now I want to provide a separate independent environment for these 3 people to work or build some functionalities. Now every developer has their own system. When you are going with on-premise, you are given a system. Whatever the code you write, it is saved on your system. Now whenever you want, you'll share with the team. Now what happened? It is a cloud for every developer to work. For every developer, what we are doing, we are giving an independent copy. For every developer, we give one developer sandbox. Developer sandboxes are generally designed for individual developer to work. Developer sandboxes are generally designed for developer sandboxes. These are generally designed for development activities by individual user. So when I say developer sandbox, it is a copy of productions. It's a copy of productions metadata. Developer sandbox are designed for individual developer activities. It is a copy of, it is an independent copy of productions metadata. Only productions metadata. Only productions metadata. Where the data size, the size of the data we can store in this environment is 200 MB. The maximum size of the data we can store in this environment is 200 MB. The maximum size of the files, images, altogether, the space available to store images, files, documents is 200 MB. Now, if you want to take a fresh copy of production, if you want to take fresh copy of production one time a day, you can refresh one time in a day. Basically, what type of actions are performed on this? On the developer sandbox, development activities, and unit testing. So, what type of activities? Development and unit testing by individual developer. So, developer sandboxes are designed for individual developers' activities. It is a copy of production's metadata. The complete production metadata will come. Then we can store the data up to 200 MB. We can store the files up to 200 MB. Once in a day, you can take a fresh copy from the production. We are not moving the changes from sandbox to production. I'm telling refresh is taking the fresh copy of production into sandbox. Every day, once in every day, I can refresh and take the fresh copy of production. What type of activities are performed? Development and unit testing. Development and unit testing. Right. Here, you don't get any sample data from production. As a developer, as you're building your functionality, you have to create your own sample data or request for the sample data from production, upload the data. It is your responsibility to create the data. So how you get your data? Will you ask production or you ask your some other person or you create manually? It's your choice. It is your responsibility to create a test data and make your unit testing. So type of activities that are performed here is development and unit testing. Right. Any other queries on this point? Any other queries on this point? So developer, I repeat one more time. Developer sandbox is designed for individual developers' development activities. It is a copy of production's metadata only. It is a copy of production's metadata only. The maximum size of the data we can store is 200 MB. The maximum size of the files we can store all the files together, maximum size 1 MB. Refresh rate once in a day. Type of activities, it is development and unit testing. Any further queries on this?
So all three developers are using same user or different users, individual users?
Developer has their own sandbox. Every developer has their own sandbox. Now this is for given for one sandbox. Let us say sandbox 1, sandbox 2, sandbox 3. Now you can look at the screen. I have different sandbox. So I will give one sandbox to one developer. Look at the type of sandboxes. It is developer sandbox. So only one user will log into each sandbox. It's just like your system. It's just like your personal system. Right. Any other queries?
Satish, in real life, do we directly push it to production from sandbox, developer sandbox, or do we go to testing and then push it to?
If you are making a minor changes, right,
Okay.
you can directly push on to the production. If the impact of the changes is more, right, then obviously I'll follow the life cycle. If the impact, the changes what I made is really going to show a lot of impact on the, then impact on the live data, then I'm going to make the process testing and everything, and then I will deploy. Otherwise, you can directly push from the sandbox to production.
Okay.
Right. Any other queries from anyone? Good. Then.
Satish, can you show us how to create the sandbox once again?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that at the end. Okay. So,
okay, thank you.
Fine. Let me go back. Next one. We are going with the next sandbox. Developer Pro Sandbox. Developer Pro Sandbox. Now, when individual users are working on the sandbox, I have some functionalities. I have a sandbox here where I want to join the code from different sandboxes, integrate it, then build it. Then what I'm doing, a part of the code is developed by this developer, a part of the code is developed by this developer. I want to take the partial code from them and integrate them, build the additional functionality and move it. So when you want to join or integrate the tasks from different sandboxes and work together, then I'll use Developer Pro Sandbox. Developer Pro Sandbox. Now on the Developer Sandbox, only one user can log in. If I say Sham, only Sham can log in. If I say Ram, if I say Faraz, only Faraz can log in. If I say Wilson, only Wilson can log in. Now I want to join these codes and build integrated functionalities. Now, when I say Developer Pro Sandbox, it is also production's metadata. It is also a copy of production's metadata only. Then, data size. When I say data size, it is going to be 1 GB. It is going to be 1 GB. When I say file size, it's 1 GB. Now, refresh interval. 1 time in a day. So, just like your developer sandbox, but only the difference is it has extra space and few extra functionalities. Developer Pro is also like a developer sandbox, which is used for development activities. This is used to integrate individual codes and build a integrated quality assurance. Then actions, we can perform development, unit testing, training, and integration testing. we can make development activities, unit testing, training, and integration testing. So it is also a developer sandbox, but it has more space and more functionality. When you want to take a code from individual sandbox, join together, build some additional functionality, then I will use Developer Pro. On the Developer Pro, number of people can log in. I can create a number of logins here. I can create one username for Sham, Ram, Faraz. I can create number of login IDs. So all these people can log in, work on it. But on this sandbox, only one login we can create. One username, one password. But on this, we can get number of username, passwords. So people can log in, work together. Right. Any query on this Developer Pro? So Developer Pro is also a developer sandbox with additional space and functionality. If you look at this, you'll understand. New sandbox. You're able to see here. Developer Pro. Developer Pro also has the same configuration, Apex and metadata, all users. But only the difference that you are finding is additional space.
Is this used for retrofitting, Satish?
Come again?
Is this used for retrofitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Any other queries from anyone?
Developer Pro only users can be logged in, right?
Your voice is low, Rajni. Yeah. Any other
Everyone
queries?
do same time,
Yes, we can do that.
and
That's how we flag.
all three can log in at this.
Yes. All the three can log in at 3 times. Like it's just like a Gmail account. When you had a Gmail account, Gmail application, what we are doing? Number of people are logging at a time, and you are trying to make it. Only the problem is, if all of them are trying to make the changes on the same, then the question of synchronization will come. Otherwise, there's no impact. Okay. If all of them are trying to make changes on the same issue, then versioning and team synchronization we have to make it. Otherwise, it's normal activity. Okay.
Satish, one more question on the same thing. How do we decide who will do the retrofitting or the integration? Out of Sam, Faraz, and Wilson,
See,
who will own it?
now when it's a task, you're integrating means you're building a task. The task should be assigned to you, right? It's not
Okay.
automated system. You're working in an organization and you're integrating means what? You're you're building some functionality. When do you build a functionality? When you're given a role to build it, right? It's a task.
Hmm.
It's a task which is assigned to you. It's not an option to choose it. It's a task given to you as a developer, right?
Okay, maybe I didn't put my question properly. So what I was trying to understand is, let's say if the tasks of Sam, Faraz, Wilson together is producing one output, right? So whose responsibility is to integrate the individual tasks of Sam, Faraz, and Wilson?
Yeah.
Is there any specific person? who
What
will
I was trying to convey you. Now they have developed it. Now in the company, the 3 members are working in it. Now who has to work on what? Who will decide? Your team member or developer, your manager, somebody will assign you task.
Hmm.
So whoever is having the task to integrate, he will do it. You are an employee of the organization, boss. There is a role given to you. They tell, boss, you build one page. Satish, you build one page. Srikanth, you build one page. Okay. Then they say, once it is done, Srikanth, join together and integrate. Now it's a task. It's not a functionality, right?
So Satish, is that means again this is a deployment from one instance, from one sandbox to another sandbox?
Yeah, we can say deployment, migrating the changes. So we generally say upload. The general term what we use is upload. You can
So
call it
I'll give you the context, Satish. I'm actually a project manager in Pega technology, right? So I'm just trying to understand if in case tomorrow I'm working on Salesforce, how do I assign it to anyone? So that's the context where I'm coming from.
So see, now let us say you're working on the Pega now. Now
Yeah.
you want to build one table. right? You're building one ORM, you're building like you want to build one table. Now, who will build that table in your team?
The developer, yeah.
So which developer?
As in, I didn't get the question.
Got it? Did you get my point? Now you said developer. Which developer? Is it Wilson,
Bigger developer.
or Sham? So whomever you are going to assign, he is going to do it, right?
Okay, no, but typically what we do is when we do a retrofit, it is typically done by a Pega lead, not the developer himself.
That's your company policy. Now I say my developer.
Okay.
Now you cannot say no, right?
But Satish, while moving to production, who will do as a developer or admin?
Pardon me? Now it depends upon the roles and number of people involved and responsibilities of this one. So these are not the, see, you people are working in an organization already. Now, who will do it? Now you'll say project manager will do it. Why project manager will do it? I will say my developer will do it. I will say my tester will do it. So this is not the technical query. Now, who will deploy? It depends upon the size of your team and who has the roles, who has the roles to do it. It's not a universal standard definition that manager will deploy, a developer will deploy, a tester will deploy, or Satish will deploy. So this is with respect to your size of the team, with respect to the roles and responsibilities of your team or individuals, they take care about it, right? You get my point?
Yeah.
Right. It's completely specific to your organization. What we are discussing, sandbox, and you're coming back to the company specific requirements. Right? The process of your company is different from other organization process that you people have to understand. Okay, right? So a lot of out of context. Come back to the topic. Now we got it. So let me go to the next part. Now we are going for partial copy sandbox. Now when I'm going for partial copy sandbox, partial copy sandbox When you say partial copy sandbox, it is a copy of production's metadata plus sample data. When I say partial copy sandbox, it is a copy of production's metadata and sample data. Copy of production's metadata and sample data. Maximum 10,000 records for each table. Object. When I say object, it's a table. Maximum 10,000 records per object. Right. Second, data size. Data size. When I say data size, 5 GB. Maximum size of the file is 5 GB. So how many times I can refresh? I can refresh one time in 5 days. One time in every 5 days. Then actions, what we can do? Generally, the partial copy sandbox is also used for development and testing. If you want to verify the functionality of bulk operations, you generally test your bulk operations on the partial copy. All type of testings will do it on the partial copy except load testing and performance testing. Except load testing and performance testing, all type of testing activities are performed on partial copy. Except load testing and performance testing, all type of testing activities are performed on the partial copy sandbox. Or if you want to test your bulk operation, you want to test your functionality, developer would like to test his functionality, bulk operation functionality, let us say batch apex, schedule apex, which will deal with the millions of record. If you want to test its bulk operation, then you will be using partial copy. So it is used for testing activities. Generally we call it as UAT environment, user acceptance testing environment. Partial copy is generally called UAT environment, user acceptance testing. All type of testings are performed on this environment. All type of testings are performed on this environment except load testing and performance testing. Right. Now let me go to the next part of the sandbox. I have full sandbox. When you say full sandbox, it is exact copy of production. It is complete production metadata plus data. It is a copy of production's metadata and data. It is a copy of production's metadata and data. It is a copy of production's metadata and data. Complete data. In the partial copy, we have a partial data. It is a complete data. So file size, data size, size of production. Whatever the production size is there, the same size. File size, production size. Then refresh interval, one time in every 29 days. Refresh interval, one time in every 29 days. Then actions, generally used for load testing and performance testing. You can do all type of activities, but generally used for load testing and performance testing. You can do all type of testing, but generally used for load testing and performance testing. This is also called staging environment. This is also called staging environment. This is also called staging environment. So full sandbox is the copy of production's metadata and data, complete data. Production's metadata and complete data. The data size is the production size. File size is the production size. Refresh interval is one time in every 29 days. Actions, load testing and performance testing. Generally it is called as staging environment. So let me put all together now. Let me put all together. So I'm going to take So let me put all together. So we have developer sandbox. Only on the developer sandbox, one person can log in. Rest of the sandboxes, group of people can log in. So this developer sandboxes, QA, which is developer. It's a QA, which we call as developer pro. Then we go with UAT environment. So when you say UAT environment, partial copy. Then from UAT it goes to staging. It goes to staging. Then it goes to production. it goes to production. This is the general flow of your application. So generally this is the flow. Any application that you take generally has developers environments. From developers environment is a QA environment, QA to UAT, UAT to staging, staging to production. So general any application will go with developer to QA, QA to UAT, UAT to staging, staging to production. Now in our case, developers, they're working on developer sandbox, QA, developer pro sandbox, UAT, partial copy, staging, full sandbox. Then to the live environment. Now this is how the sandbox or the environments of the Salesforce application flow. When you're taking this, now people have asked me who will do the role of this, who will deploy, who will upload. This all deployment uploading depends upon your team size, number of people involved in the team, who is assigned the role of the task, who is going to integrate. It all depends upon your task, how the tasks are assigned to the people. It is a task assignment, number of people involved, how your team is managing. It is your team management. It is not Salesforce management. It depends upon the size of the people, depends upon the people. Let us say I have a project. It's a maintenance project. I have only 3 people, on-site manager, offshore manager, and developer. Now who will do that? I have only 3 members in my team. It's a maintenance project, very small project. There are only 3 people, on-site manager, offshore manager, and a developer. Now, who will take care about this deployment? My onshore manager is not a technical guy. He's a head for the CRM. He's only head for the CRM practice. My offshore manager is also head for the CRM practice in the India. Now, only a developer is the Salesforce core developer. Now, who will do the activity now? So, who will deploy, who will integrate, this all is your company issues, depends upon the size, it depends upon the roles and responsibilities that is assigned to your developers. Who is assigned the role to do this activity? Yeah. So that's...
Hey Satish, I'm sorry if I asked the wrong question there.
Yeah. No. I just clarifying the...
I was just inquisitive to know, so I just asked that question. So if it is irrelevant,
I was just saying to explain to the other people also. Right. It's not about your query. Okay. Right. Fine. Any other queries from this part? Any other query from this part?
So is this structure company to company, Satish, or for every organization the same?
This is the practice that every application of any technology will follow. Now only the point is, now you have to understand this developer, I told developer. So in terms of Salesforce, what is this environment? In terms of Salesforce, it is going to be developer sandbox. It is not only Salesforce application, every application would have the same flow. Now, in terms of Salesforce, you need to connect this developer environment this is developer sandbox. This
Hi Satish.
Yes.
This is Akshay.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, about the refresh rate.
Okay.
So when you are getting full sandbox, so why the refresh rate is only one time in 29 days?
Yeah. So because the staging environment is going to have complete data of production.
Yeah.
Complete data of production. So I cannot take fresh copy. It has like 1 TB of data, 10 TB of data. So
Okay.
I cannot take the fresh copy every time. Basically, what for we are using the staging environment? It is for load testing and performance testing. Okay.
Yes.
So when do you go for load testing and performance testing? Generally, when there is a huge manipulations on the functionality, right?
Okay.
Right. That's how when you make a huge manipulation, then only I am going to make a load testing and performance testing. That's the reason. As there is a huge data, I need to migrate into the sandbox. It takes a lot of time, and it is going to affect the performance also.
Okay.
Okay. That is the reason they say staging take it for only once in 29 days. And moreover, if you have 1 million sample data or like 2 million sample data, is more or less same. Unless you test your load and performance.
Okay.
Unless you test your load and performance. That's why I told, if you are going with the load and performance, you'll use staging environment. Any smaller testing functionality, let us say any other testing, then I told use partial copy. Okay. And moreover, this guy require only sample data. Let him have 10 records or 1000 records, is the same. Right?
Okay.
That's the reason it says fine. When I say developer, as I keep on making a changes, right? Before I make a new functionality, I want to first take the existing code. What is there in the production? That is the reason the refresh rate is only once in a day.
Okay.
Right? Amma?
Okay, I got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Right. Any other queries, boss? Any other queries? Any other queries? So, any other queries? Someone has asked me for sandbox creation. So, let me show you.
No, hi Satish.
Yes.
This is Sunil.
Yes, Sunil.
Yeah, regarding the refresh rate, you have mentioned like for developer and developer pro, it's 1 day.
Yes.
So if one developer has been doing small changes and he will be directly deploying into production, right? If there is nothing much change in that.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You can directly push into.
So the other developer is working on the same sandbox, right? So if he refreshes the sandbox on this next day, the code what he has done will be replaced by the existing code, right?
Exactly.
So the code what I have done will be replaced with the existing production sandbox.
Exactly. So
Again I need to rebuild the code on this.
I got your point. See, when you refresh your sandbox, okay, when you refresh your sandbox, once the sandbox is refreshed, you get an option to activate. Even when I refresh the sandbox, let us say you have done some code and you are working on one sandbox, I am working on one sandbox. Right. Let us say Satish has made a new program. I wrote a program called example and student, pushed into the production. Meanwhile, you are also writing a program. You wrote a program called, let us say, student, and you wrote a program called college. Now, when I wrote a program, I pushed into the production. Then I told refresh. When your sandbox is refreshed, the sandbox is not automatically refreshed. Someone has to manually refresh your sandbox. When I push the changes into production, let us take. Now from sandbox 7, I made the changes. I pushed it into production. When I pushed it into production deployed, sandboxes are not auto-refreshed. Sandboxes are auto-refreshed only when I go to your sandbox and click on a button called refresh. When I click on the refresh button, then your sandbox is going to be refreshed. Even when your sandbox is refreshed, you are going to get a button called activate. Okay. So within 24 hours, still you have a time to take up your backup in case of any mistake.
So Satish, suppose developer sandbox. Suppose today I did some changes and some development.
Okay.
So end of the day, if you are doing a refresh, then my changes will go right.
Now that's what. Every refresh is different. Every sandbox has individual refresh. If I refresh sandbox 1, it will not refresh other sandboxes. Now your sandbox,
okay.
My sandbox is different. Now when I deploy the code to production, production is not going to refresh my sandbox.
No, not like that. So my question is, suppose we have a sandbox, developer sandbox.
Okay.
Today I started development.
Oh.
So, but it's not yet completed. So end of the day, someone is refresh the sandbox. Then whatever I did the development, that will go right. See, that will override the production, right?
Right. Now, when you got a sandbox, first point, when I say maximum refresh rate is 1 means you can maximum refresh one time in a day. It will not refresh every day. First point. When I say refresh once in a day means if you can refresh maximum one time in a day, the system is not going to refresh. First point. Maximum you can refresh one time. It is not automatic refresh. System is not going to refresh. You have to manually refresh it. Maximum we can refresh one time in a day. The first point. Am I clear with the first point?
So when they are going to be refreshed, we have to take backup, right?
Now let me finish here. Yeah. So yeah, someone right, fine. So let me give you. So when you are going to refresh, when do you refresh? When you refresh, when all the changes, whatever that you have done in the sandbox, when you push these changes to production or push these changes to any other sandbox, then only refresh. Otherwise, everything that you have in your sandbox will be lost.
Okay.
So before you refresh your sandbox, if you feel that any code is there on your sandbox, then you can take a backup. Now generally what we do is we work with IDEs. When you work with your IDEs, everything that is there on my environment will come back to my IDE. No, you don't want to use any IDE. Then what we do?
Okay.
The uncommitted changes, the changes which are not deployed to the production, you push these changes to any other environment, then refresh. Without pushing these changes to any other environment, if you refresh, automatically everything is lost. But when you refresh, still you have 24 hours time to activate it. When you refresh, they ask auto activate or manual activate. When you say auto activate, so automatically system will activate. So automatically your code is lost. Manual activate, when you refresh also, the sandbox is refreshed, but until you click on activate button, the sandbox will not be refreshed. You'll get a fresh copy, but still you have an old copy on your system. Until you click on activate, still you have old copy. You have 24 hours time. Within 24 hours, you don't activate, automatically system will activate.
Okay.
Got my point?
Yeah.
Any other query?